teenage dirtbag, baby. Listen to Iron Maiden, baby, with me. No. Her boyfriend's named Jay. He brings a gun to school and he'd simply kick my ass if he knew the truth. He lives on my block and he drives a night ride, but he doesn't know who I am, and he doesn't give a damn about me. I'm just a teenage dirtbag, baby. I'm just a teenage dirtbag, baby. Listen to Iron Maiden, baby, with me. No. Oh, yeah. She doesn't know what she's missing. Oh, yeah. She doesn't know what she's missing. And I feel like mold. It's prom night and I am lonely. Lo and behold, she's walking over to me. This must be fate. My lips starts to shake. How does she know who I am? And why does she give a damn about me? Say, come on, come on, come on. I got some tickets to Iron Maiden, baby. Come with me Friday. Don't say maybe. I'm just a teenage dirtbag, baby, like you. No, I'm just a teenage dirtbag, baby, like you.
Ever since I was a young
And we can't stop. And we won't stop.
Hey everybody, it's the top of the hour. That means you got a little bit of time to grab yourself a snack, get something to drink, get all comfy cozy, curl up in your favorite chair. I don't know. Share out the link with your friends and family not already in the stream, because 6 o'clock Dad Rock Talk will begin in about 2.5 minutes.
We're gonna go all night till we see satellite. Alright, so la-da-di-da-di. We like to party, dancing with Miley, doing whatever we want. This is our house, this is our rules, and we can't stop. And we won't stop. Can you see it's we who own the night? Can you see it's we who bow the light? And we can't stop. And we won't stop. We run things don't run. We don't take nothing from nobody. Yeah, it's our party, we can do what we want. It's our party, we can say what we want. It's our party, we can love who we want. We can kiss who we want, we can live how we want. To my homegirls here with the big butt, shaking it like we at a strip club. Remember, only God can judge you. Forget the haters, 'cause Scott Bradley loves ya. And everyone in line for the bathroom, trying to get a line in a bathroom. We are so turned up, so turned up. Yeah, yeah. So la da da da. I like to party, dancing with Miley, doing whatever we want. This is our house, this is our rules, and we can't stop. And we won't stop. Can you see it's we who own the night? Can you see it's we who found that life? And we can't stop. And we won't stop. We run things don't run. We don't take nothing from nobody. Yeah, it's a party, we can do what we want. It's a party, we can say what we want. It's a party, we can love who we want. We can kiss who we want. We can live how we want. It's a party, we can do what we want to. It's our house, we can love who we want to. Love who we want. Song, we can sing if we want. It's my mouth, I can say what I want to. Yeah, yeah.
Welcome to the virtual Stab Comedy Theater. It's time for 6 o'clock Dad Rock Talk. So please welcome to your screen, 6 o'clock Dad Rock Talk.
Hey folks, welcome to the show. This is 6 o'clock Dad Rock Talk. I'm Corey Behringer, joined as always by my co-host Court Hansen, and as not always, by friend of the show, RJ Hill. How you doing, RJ?
Friend of the show. I get a title when I tattoo
You're
that
friend
to
of
my
the show.
forehead.
I think a third appearance on the show ushers you in to friend of the show. And that this goes for anyone who might be on the show. This is not just a special RJ thing. It's really the third appearance. I'm setting it now in stone.
Yeah, once you hit 3 episodes, that's when you get to see all the secrets.
Yes.
You get to learn all the secrets behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You get to see the conditions that we make Jesse live in so he could produce our show.
Yep.
You personally get to scoop spoonfuls of slop for his doggy bowl that we forced him to eat out of.
We go to Bohemian Grove afterwards, and there's like an owl effigy. It's great.
Yeah.
But,
Bohemian Grove is kind of like our topic.
In a little bit, yes. So, for those of you who maybe haven't seen one of RJ's previous appearances, he works at Medium Rare Records, fantastic, groovy little record shop here in town. What's new in the world of selling vinyl and what have you?
A lot of bluegrass.
Oh, really? We're seeing like kind of an uptick in that. Is that selling them or buying them back?
Well, the collection that Marty brought in recently, it was just boxes. It was like 3 or 4 boxes, and I went through it. It was just bluegrass and country. There was like new bluegrass revival, some Jerry Reed, a lot of old-timey country and stuff like that. So I've just been going through and singing Ginseng Sullivan, and I think bugging the other people in the mall. So yeah, a lot of country and bluegrass that came in recently, which is
very cool.
I like that stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think I saw. Did you post on your Instagram, or it might have been Court? I saw like a Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. I think it was kind of their big album that I always forget the name of, but it's the guy and his dog. It's the only one I've ever owned.
Uncle Charlie and his dog Teddy.
Yeah.
There you go. That's the one. Yeah.
One of us probably posted it. I mean, just put a dartboard and
Yeah.
But that's the cool thing about following Medium Rare Records as well as just RJ's personal account, is always throwing the coolest gems out there of what they have in the store, because it's not what you'd just expect to see at a vintage record shop. It's not like you're just showing, here's Dark Side of the Moon because this is the record. It's like some deeper cuts, and it's rad. I love seeing that kind of stuff. So definitely we'll shout out near the end of the show too, where you can find Medium Rare on all the outlets. But the real matter at hand this week, gentlemen, is it is volume 2 of the ongoing RJ series of RJ's picks. He's handcrafted a playlist for us of Grateful Dead jam, but this one in particular, he has informed us, is exclusively audience tapes, and almost exclusively from the 80s. Am I correct in that?
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
Yeah. So I was just thinking, you know, like how most people got into the Dead before Dick LaValla was just like throwing soundboards to people left and right was audience tapes. You know, dudes would just kind of show up. Well, you know, it started out just people showing up to a show with microphones and just wanting to, you know, record the experience. And then as, you know, the Dead go on and as time goes on, a culture sort of developed around, you know, taping and stuff like that. Like, I mean, if you've been to record stores or just even been around music, you know, the joke about Grateful Dead bootlegs and stuff has just been a thing for ages. And I always thought audience tapes were, you know, really interesting, and I think they sound great. So I started collecting like digitally a bunch of them because they're just out there. And so I guess I wanted to just show them off because a lot of people worked really hard to tape those shows, because up until a certain point, you really weren't supposed to. The Dead were always iffy about like their taping policy, but then, you know, venue enforcement would just be like, hey, you can't have a microphone. Yeah. But, you know, the Dead and the taping culture around them were sort of started the, you know, the taping scene in general, because now, you know, there's probably Bob Dylan audience tapes. There's not Jimi Hendrix, but audience tapes, but there's just all sorts of audience tapes from, you know, artists now. And you can trace that back to sort of like, you know, people just starting to tape for the Dead just because they wanted to share the music. So I wanted to showcase all of those, and also 80s Dead is just, I think it's fun. So, you know.
I think it's a noble cause. I think tape trading in general is so noble because it's sharing in its purest form. It's not you know, holding on to this special thing because it is my special thing and I don't want anyone else to like this special thing. It's getting it out there because how beautiful is this? It needs to be spread. I just think that's gorgeous.
Well, as a quick aside, I use eTree, which is sort of like a place where you collect all the tapes. There was a guy on there who was uploading a bunch of stuff. I saw he had things I wanted, and so I just messaged him, hey, I saw on this list you have this, that, and the other. If I just send you like blanks and postage, can I get these? And he was like, yeah, no one's asked me that in 10 years. That's fine. And I sent him a flash drive of it was just a 64 gig flash drive, and he filled it with just the two shows I wanted, and then like 56 gigs of just a ton of other stuff. And he was like, hey, thanks for emailing me. Here's the
gigs of gigs.
Drive. Exactly. Anyways.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is so cool. I just love that. It's so pure. So what we're going to be doing this week on the show is listening to the playlist. For those of you maybe tuning in for one of the first times or something, we listen to a snippet of the playlist, and then we kind of talk about what we just heard. And this one's going to be a slightly more complicated because we have some timestamps and that sort of thing. But Jesse, if you're ready, I think we are. Let's listen to the first on the playlist.
Yeah. Okay. I'm so excited for this one.
There's mosquitoes on the river, fish are rising up like birds. It's been hot for 7 weeks now, too hot to even speak now. Did you hear what I just heard? That might have been a fiddle, or it could have been the wind. Well, that seems to be a beat now. I can hear it in my feet now. This near it comes again.
There's a fire down on the highway. They're all living in town.
What was that, RJ?
So that was The Music Never Stopped, and that is from 9/28/75. So the Dead were on hiatus after the Wall of Sound tour in '74. They played a few shows in '75. I think this was one of the last of them they played in Golden Gate Park. I picked this for two reasons. One, it's an audience tape, and it sounds freaking amazing. You couldn't even tell it's an audience tape.
Sounds like a board tape. It
Yeah,
really
exactly.
does.
It was I think it was in front of the soundboard. There's different places where you record tapes. There's the official tapers section, which wasn't created until like 83, 84. And then there's I like Mouth of the Beast a lot. It's called front of board. And you're literally in front of the soundboard with your microphones recording. And I think this particular tape was. The reason why I picked this one is because, I wanted to establish a precedent that, like, the Dead can get really funky and dancey fast, because a lot of 80s Dead, there is, like, they have, the jams and the ballads and stuff. But with the coming of the 80s came, a lot of the funk and dance and disco Dead. And, people shit on Shakedown Street because it's like a disco record. And it's like,
I love it.
okay, yeah, disco, you can have your opinions on it. But, like, the Dead, they like being funky. They like being dancey. And I included that one just because, like, that one, too, it's got foot stomping, like, from the moment they go. And, it's super dancey and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, the Dead have been doing sort of this disco-y, dancey stuff since even before,
Yeah,
Shakedown
that's...
Street.
Yeah. And Donna sounds really good there, too. Do you know if they had her properly mic'd up in this instance versus a lot of the other times?
I don't know.
Because it seemed like she could hear herself singing.
It also might just be, it might be a mix of that and also just sort of like being in the audience and sort of taping that as compared to the soundboard, just because, like, when you have a soundboard recording, you can get the biases of the guy who's mixing, but when you have an audience recording, it's just sort of like what the audience hears. And I think that show they probably just mic'd her a bit better, but
yeah, because she sounded totally, on point there.
Exactly, yeah. But
so I'm not as familiar. Is there like kind of a precedent of other tapes of her not quite sounding so great?
not just tapes,
I'm not really.
but like there was a complaint. Donna talked about how, like, when she was in the Dead, when she would be trying to sing, because a lot of people like hate Donna. I mean, I don't. I love her. Just there's a lot of
I think
people
she's great too.
Who are like, just like, oh, she sucks, and it's like,
And they don't want a girl in their Grateful Dead as
Well.
I think that's really what it is for a lot of people. Like, I'm just learning about this, and that already makes sense to me.
But her thing was that they weren't actually, like, she didn't sing. There wasn't a whole lot of songs she sang on. So when they mic'd her, they're like, whatever. It's just like the volume's fine, right?
You can just hop in.
Yeah, and like monitors, like, because when you're singing, you can't hear yourself on stage. You have to have monitors. They wouldn't monitor her properly, so she didn't know what she was sounding like. So when she sounds off, half the time is because she thought she was on time, but because of the way the stage was set up and how she was mic'd, she sounds off, and then it's a mess. But
yeah, that shows that she really does have strength as a singer. You just got to hear the right circumstances, because there's certainly some long playing in the bands that she makes feel a lot longer. But when she's on, I don't know what I'm trying to say other than that she sounded good here, and I want to draw attention to it.
Yeah, that was a highlight for me listening to the clip. It was that, and I also really enjoyed when, like, the background ooze kicked in, because they weren't just carrying like one kind of sustained background, like they were following like their own separate groove. You don't hear that a lot with backup vocals. I just thought that was really neat.
yeah. But
let's any more thoughts, or do you want to move on to the next one?
No, move on. That just establishes funky precedents.
Nice. I love the funk.
Oh yeah. Oh.
Tell us about that one.
So that actually leads us into 80s Dead. That was Shakedown Street from, it was at the Merriweather Post Pavilion, June 30th, 1985. I included that because, one, it's, I just talked about Shakedown Street, and then I went into Shakedown Street, so I was like, I better have the contrast just immediately. And two, the audience tape sounds good.
Mhm.
Three, it's just so dancey. Like,
Yeah.
That's sort of what sold me on 80s Dead was that particular that instance of Shakedown Street in particular, because I mean when I was getting into the Dead originally, it's like, oh yeah, Keith Godchow and like Hetty Dark Stars and like it's 1972 man and shit like that. But then you just sort of relax a little bit and you're like, oh hey, it turns out Shakedown Street's kind of good, and then you hear this version and the rhythm guitar that Bob has, it's just so distorted, and he's playing chords that aren't associated with like funk and disco. And on top of that, you have like two percussionists, just going at it and doing the 4/4 thing, which already has a foot stomping feeling to it. And then you throw all that in with like that, you can hear Brent kind of plinking away too, but he's not plinking away like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna follow Jerry, He's plinking away and doing his own thing where it fits in, but it's still sort of like holding a rhythm so that Jerry can, do his little dun 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 dun. And I think it's a good example of just sort of like, I call it good old Grateful Dead. I mean, it's supposed to be used for like, the 60s or whatever, but I associate good old Grateful Dead with like, yeah, fuck man, I'm just going to dance to this and I don't really care.
Yeah.
Oh, go on.
No, that was it. What's up?
I was going to say, I think that this clip is like, if you were to show someone who was not a Grateful Dead convert already that clip, I think that would, I don't think it would click for them. But when you think about that in the context of it's like probably an hour into a 3-hour long, like super long show,
Which it is.
and everyone is having fun, like the people who were there are having fun and dancing and socializing. There's people buying t-shirts in the lot. There's people hawking grilled cheeses in the lot, swapping tapes, making tapes. And once you realize that it's like, it's dance music in just like the most basic sense of the word, it's like, oh, this is music that is being like kind of improvised on the spot to make several thousand people just like hang out and have fun. And if you don't like that style of music, that's one thing. But for like, I think anyone can get in the mindset to where that would be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, unless you're a real like downer, like,
Exactly.
and you're just gonna like complain about it the whole time. But like, who wouldn't want to? Especially now that we're all stuck inside still. Like, who wouldn't want to be in like a big fun live music event? With just hanging out with a bunch of people, not a phone in sight.
Yeah, no Wi-Fi. It's 1985.
Yeah, you have to go back in time.
Hey man.
It'd be cool
we
if
keep saying the
it'd be
word
cool if
fun. Sorry, go on.
I was
go
just
on.
gonna say it'd be cool if Dark Star Orchestra, because they do cover sets of specific Dead shows. It'd be cool if they recreated the conditions of the year that it took place in the show.
Don't
that they
recreate
did.
1985. Not for the musicians. No.
That'd be bad.
That'd be,
Oh, yeah,
it would be
just the-
1985. What?
Yeah.
But
That could be
Corey,
anyways.
we can move
Well,
on.
I just wanted to point out and perhaps this will continue, throughout this time period in the Dead. I don't really know, but we keep saying the word fun, and I think that shouldn't be overlooked, because it's almost like and maybe from the point of view of not just converts to the Dead, but also like the more purists who think in terms of just like 60s and 70s. You kind of have to give yourself permission to have fun, to enjoy this era of it. It forces you to take it a little less seriously, and then ironically you can then take it more seriously because you first let yourself have fun. And then you start to notice everything else, because like I was hearing all these tones that like I didn't necessarily associate with the Dead as much. I don't know whose guitar it was, but it was sounding like Bernie Worrell's like keyboard. Like it was that kind of P-funk sort of like that choppy, like I don't know, like it's just cool. The stuff you appreciate when you let yourself just take a minute and like, let go of any pretension of like this is silly music, because of course it's silly music. Frankly, all live music is silly music. It's just silly that we're doing it.
Exactly. And I mean, for some people, there was just like a wall. I mean, there was a wall for me when I was getting into the Dead, and there's like, oh, the 80s. What? Touch of Grey? Like, I don't need to listen to the Plinky shit. I can just go listen to a Dark Star or whatever. But then, you just kind of, you relax, you realize it actually sounds really good, and you just have fun. And like a lot of 80s Dead is just plain old fun. And with that,
let's hear the next one. Nice.
Yeah, so I picked that one because this was half like 80s Dead, and then also I wanted to talk about audience tapes a little bit too. I forget who recorded this one in particular, but I adore how this tape sounds, and I picked it because you could hear like Phil just thudding. It's like you're there, and like you can actually feel the bass frequencies hit you. And the best way to experience those, frequencies and have Phil Les show you a new sound card is picking a good Scarlet Fire. I mean, everybody loves Scarlet Fire. That's Scarlet Begonias to Fire on the Mountain. When there are people, who are getting into the Dead and such, like, you gravitate towards like certain songs and jams that to get into shows. And for a lot of people, like, I'll play a Scarlet Fire at the shop, and they'd be like, what Scarlet Fire is this? I just got into the Dead, and I really like Scarlet Fire from Cornell. And it's like, alrighty, buddy, I'll tell you. And I like that one just because it's chill. It's super good quality. It's got really good bass. And I think with Fire on the Mountain, I call it Mickey Hart's marijuana song because, like, he was just probably really fucking high when he wrote it, and it sounds like it. And then when you listen to 80s versions of it, like this one in particular, I think that feeling kind of comes across very much just because, like, it's super laid back and just kind of bum, ba-dum, bum, do-do-do-dum. And then when you have, like, Brent and his keyboards, it just adds a layer of, like, intricateness to the chill. I don't know. I just thought it was a really good cut.
Yeah, I dug it a lot. I'm such a babe in the woods when it comes to Dead. Like, such a very limited understanding, but it does feel nice when there's a melody that I immediately know of, like, Fire on the Mountain, there we go.
Yeah.
And I get such a brief taste of what people like already like in the community feel, and it's like, it lets you kind of know like that there's something really special here. It's nice to hear.
And on that tape in particular, you can actually hear some really good banter on it. On the first part, for the Scarlet Begonias, somebody walks up to the taper is like, "Mark just got busted," and you can hear it super loud. And it's like, "What? Mark just got busted."
Beauty.
And, further on down the tape, because this was at the Greek Theater in '82. Somebody on a Harley Davidson, I think, in the audience, or was just driving by, and during drums, instead of like hearing drums, you just hear a motorcycle because the guy started revving it up. The magic world of audience tapes, you hear a lot of stuff. We'll get into that further down the line with the clip. But anyways, I do want to get to the next one just because it's fun, and
Let's hear it.
yeah, just
Must be getting early, clouds are running late. Right now this morning sky, it's so funny. I'm bursting everywhere. Draw the curtain, I don't care. Light a candle, curse the glare. It's alright. I will get by. I will get by. I will get by. I will survive. I see you've got your list out.
that was the one I was looking forward to. I mean, I'm looking forward to all of these, obviously, on the list. But that one in particular, that's 5/8/84, which was, I forget where, but it wasn't at Cornell. It was one of those things where it's like, hey, I'm listening to 5/8. No, not that 5/8, the other 5/8. And I put that one in there because, one, it followed another Scarlet Fire, and throughout the Dead's history, the moment Fire of the Mountain got written, literally every time they performed Scarlet, like it was guaranteed that Fire on the Mountain was going to come on. And I remember when I first heard this one, when I went to Touch of Grey, I was driving actually, and I just pulled over and started laughing, not because I don't like Touch of Grey. I love that song. It's just really funny to hear it go into like what will become one of the biggest hits, and two, what some like if you're like an elitist deadhead on the internet, it's like, oh, what, you're a touch head? That's kind of lame. Touch of Grey is a silly song, etc. And I guess it also kind of blows me away. Two things on that one in particular. One, Touch of Grey being performed that early because it wasn't released as a song in the studio until 1987. But the track that we just listened to, yeah,
Was 82, right?
yeah, the earliest was 82.
Okay, wow.
But this one was from 84. So, you get an early performance of that. The transition is actually, the Dead weren't really good at transitions, especially post-hiatus, but that one was actually really good. And Brent's tone right there, his 84 tone always strikes me as sort of like sounding like a video game sort of like synthesizer. And that's what sort of like made me fall in love with 80s Dead was 1984 in particular, because his tone is just sort of like, I could probably put it in a Nintendo game and nobody would blink an eye because it just sounds right. And I love that performance just because a lot of people, when they think of the Dead, 84, 85, 86, they're like, ooh, what? Jerry is like all tired and stuff. Get him an EpiPen. So I wanted to throw something out there that, would make you think about like their quality performance from then.
And that's so strikingly the opposite of anything you'd venture to call tired. That was like busy as hell. Like it was all over the place. And it's so much of a workout just to listen to it, I think. Like that was not an easy listen, but I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Jerry got to work out for sure.
So much going on.
Yeah, I guess the reason why it's like, go get Jerry Nuppy, when you know the history of the Dead and just that time period and his health and his other issues and such like that, and you hear him sing, it's like, oh, he sounds kind of but his playing was great. The man could still shred. I think he shreds there.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, let's hear another.
Next one. Oh yeah. So that one was that was estimated profit from that was October 14th, 1983, which was in Connecticut. It's a Dick's Picks, but I chose the audience tape, one, just to be like, yeah, I want to use all audience tapes, and two, I like the dynamics of how it sounds, because with a lot of 80s soundboards, and if you talk to people who are like both into soundboards and audience tapes, a lot of people don't listen to, well, a lot, at least the people that I've run into, don't listen to 80s, early into mid 80s Dead on soundboards, just because a lot of the time when they were recorded, it was like, yeah, whatever, you know, there's Jerry and there's some microphones, and then like Bob's there, I guess, and then, oh, Brent, that's right, shit. And they're just
So they don't catch everything.
yeah, they're mixed. I think they're mixed. Dan Healy didn't. I mean, you know, hit and miss. He didn't do a great job, to me at least. But with that one, you could really hear. One, you can hear everybody pretty clearly. But two, it really shows how Phil and Brent and such like that, when they were jamming, especially with something like that, were providing their own sort of melodies without being overbearing. Half the reason why Jerry got sick of Keith being in the band, and he talks about this, was like, yeah, Keith was being too blocky. He was just doing chords, or, you know, just mimicking what I was doing. And when you listen to that clip, you know, Brent is doing chords, but he's doing this sort of like, I call it the Bob Weir school of rhythm,
Which is the McCoy Tyner school of rhythm.
Yeah, so I thank you, McCoy Tyner, first of all. You know, so just doing like jazz chords and chords that are inverted and stuff that, you know, may not necessarily be in the same key, but, you know, they still work with the song. And you can hear that with Brent. And then Phil ignored all basics of bass playing, you know, with just like, yeah, I'll stick to the root or whatever. He does get to the root note, but he has his own melodies in there too. And I think with that tape in particular, it shows up. The other thing I want to mention, because it segues into the next track, Trey Anastasio from Phish was actually at that show that night, and he talks about that with Bob Weir in a segment. I forget who interviewed him, and he was talking about how he was at that show that night, and he was like, oh wait, I don't have to, because Trey at the time was super into like metal and Frank Zappa and stuff like that.
Yeah, here's a long hair.
A long hair. I mean, he's still long, but you know. And then he went to the Dead. He saw that show in particular, and he was like, "Oh, fuck!" And actually, if we could play the next clip, because I want to talk about that real quick.
Yeah, let's get to it.
Yeah. If it works. There it is. So, the reason why I brought up Trey being at that Dead show in particular is because that first snippet you heard it's from that same show, October 14th, 1983. It's at the end of They Love Each Other. So they had just wrapped up, and the Dead would always like tune up before the next song, and they would play, you know, they would cue each other, you know, with the way they played guitar. I think the next song after They Loved Each Other was Mama Tried that night. And Bob Weir just played this riff on guitar. Trey was, you know, tripping like hell. And he heard that. And then the snippet that you heard with the woo, 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 that was Phish performing Run Like an Antelope from October. That was August 14th, 1993 in Tinley Park, which I think is in Illinois. The point is that, you know, I wanted to make that small connection real quick because that little tuning segment, Trey was like, oh yeah, that's just another song, right? And then he took those chords that he heard from tuning. Bob Weir was tuning, everybody, just so you know. He makes a song out of it. You know, fish is a whole other can of worms for a different, you know, fishing trip. But I wanted to include that real quick because that show was, you know, I did just a little neat little piece where it's like, yeah, he's tuning right there. And then, both from audience tapes. I kept my word.
Nice.
And
Yeah,
then I
let's hear another.
Oh, so wait, real quick, actually.
Oh, sure.
This part, you're supposed to start at 7:57, and then Jesse, after the spoken word ends the first time, skip to 8:39. I think it's in the description of the video, too.
We're experiencing the evening's first blown speaker. That poor speaker gave its life for you.
Yeah, now you can skip at 8:39.
We're going to send it back home to our little speaker graveyard. In the middle of that speaker graveyard is this great big tomb where they have the tomb of the unknown speaker. It gave its life in service in Chicago in 1968.
And that's the clip. Yeah, so I included that because, like, it was 80s Dad, sure, but then also I wanted to talk about just the idea of audience tapes in general. And another reason why I really listen and like audience tapes a lot is the banter that you get that in a lot of some soundboard recordings is cut. That particular one is from the Wall of Sound tour, 6/26/1974, which I played a clip of when the first time I was on here. But this was at the end of Scarlet Begonias, and this was an audience tape recorded by Jerry Moore. I forget where he was. He had to be pretty far away with the Wall of Sound. But the shtick is, you know, with a lot of these audience tapes, you get some really good stuff like that, like the Tomb of the Unknown Speaker.
That's great banter. It really is.
There's another one from 1978 where Bob Weir is, well, I think that they call it the Mescaline Show. It's January 5th, 78 or 79 or something like that. And they were all tripping, and Bob Weir goes on this tangent about the light director for like 3 minutes and talking about, yeah, she can make us blue, and then make us blue. And I love audience tapes for that. Like it's so fun. Like, you know, like the Dead did, especially pre-hiatus, you know, they talked to the audience or made comments or something like that. And with the Wall of Sound, like take a shot every time like a speaker went out. Don't play, you'll die or get cirrhosis. And I remember the first time I heard 6/26/74 as an audience tape, I was just rolling over that. It was like the Tomb of the Unknown Speaker gave its life. Oh man! And then he says Chicago '68. And it's like, oh,
yeah, like Phil Oakes.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Find a way to twist that knife there.
Yeah, they do have some really good banter because Bobby says a lot of things that just don't really make sense. And I think that is key to good stage banter.
Mm-hmm.
It's why the Mark, Tom, and Travis show is so legendary.
Exactly.
Enlighten me. What is this?
That is Blink-182's legendary live album featuring a whole bunch of stage banter that
it's so fun. Like that's what makes that record.
And it's the dumbest nonsensical jokes you've ever heard. And Mike Love of Beach Boys, another great stage banterer. I think the key to good stage banter is to not really make sense when you're making your stupid jokes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes it timeless.
That or just you know, there's another thing. There's a famous tape that goes around that I didn't get a chance to include, 8/6/71, which is at the Hollywood Palladium. It's an audience tape. So at the end of the first song, Bob Weir steps up to the mic and says, "Hey, buddy, you with the microphone, if you want to get a good sound, you want to move about 40 feet back." And then the audience just roars. And it's just like, yeah, you know, tapers and, you know, stuff like that. I don't think this was included on the soundboard, but yeah, that's I just wanted to include the little spoken word. Next bit.
Let's hear another.
Oh yeah. Christmas came by and I got on. That's when it all began. Okay. So that was, well, obviously another audience tape because that's just who I am. But that was from March 28th, 1985 at the Nassau Coliseum, which like, when you get into like jam bands and stuff, you start learning the names of these venues because like the same bands of the Dead, I think like the Dead sort of created the circuit of like jam band venues. There's Nassau, you know, there's Red Rocks, there's would have been Winterland and the Fillmore, and then eventually I don't remember what they played in San Francisco. Point is that I picked that one because well, it's a 1985 show, and like, you know, if you know anything about Jerry, you know, that was 1985, 86 were definitely well, 85 at least was sort of like a low point in terms of like, you know, like problems and addictions and just health in general. But you listen to that, what problems? What?
Yeah.
Jerry, and then on top of all of that, you get the distortion, which like there were some 60s shows that don't even sound as distorted as that.
Yeah, they don't get heavy that much in that way post Pigpen, really.
No,
Like not very often.
Well, because like with the Wall of Sound, they were running a lot through like solid state amps and stuff, and like Bob's guitar would have some like some distortion, probably from just turning the stuff up from too much. But like Bearsoul's shtick was like pure sound, you know. He could have been a Wet CD member for all we know. But I picked that because like on the other one is, it's a classic Dead song. Like, you know, you talk about that Spanish lady again to me, Bob. Like, oof. And I wanted to showcase how Brent could get in and do those heady jams that are associated with the Dead, because the other one again is a classic Dead song, it's a classic jam. And Brent, you know, he was fired away. He was doing the and it fit in with the song. It was kind of bluesy, but it just fit. And then, you know, it sounds chaotic, but all the pieces work. It's sort of like a messed up clock, you know? It's like those cogs, I think, shouldn't work, but they do, and please don't fall apart, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
And, you know, I just... When I was
Rube Goldberg machine of music.
Exactly. When I was getting into like 80s Dead, like, you know, knowing about what issues, you know, the band in Jerry at least were having in 85, 86, it was sort of like a barrier for me to be listening to that, because it's like, oh, I know what he's going through and I don't want to really hear that. But then you hear something like that and it's fire, and it just sounds like the Grateful Dead, but it's from the 80s, and it's just like the Dead from I want to say maybe 82 up to like 87, they weren't a mainstream band. They were a cult like thing. Like if you knew somebody in 1984, 85 who said they were a Deadhead, they probably had gallons of acid in their car. But like, so, you know, the people that were listening to this stuff were just sort of like, it wasn't a big thing. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, man, you know? So jams like that are just like super under the radar, just because mid-80s Dead was a cult following thing. You know, you went to fucking Red Rocks with like 5 of your friends and some balloons and some nitros.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. You know.
Best thing for a good time.
Exactly. So yeah, 85 Dead. I love mid-80s Dead so much. It's so good. And I think the next track is mid-80s Dead.
All right. Well, let's find out. Let's hear it.
driven by the wind, like the dust that blows around. The rain falling down now.
Rain falling down, rain falling down. Okay.
Seemed a little excited about that one.
I'm very excited because, like, okay, I love, again, obviously, if you couldn't tell, I like 80s Dead, but you can't talk about 80s Dead without getting some good old Bob Weird cheese, okay? And I was thinking about how I could have done that. I could have either included the Sailor Saint combo, or maybe like I Need a Miracle, but I don't think people need to hear about these humongous women or anything like that. So with this one I picked, it was 10-10-82, which was, I'm going to call it a hometown show. It was in Palo Alto. It was at the Frost Amphitheater. That one was a front of board recording, which again, homie was just like, yeah, I'm going to set up in front, and what are they going to do, stop me? And you can tell it's front of board just because the bass and stuff is way, way more pronounced. You can really hear Phil on that one.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's why I like audience tapes a lot, is again because Phil just comes through, especially on those front of board Mouth of the Beast recordings. Just but that section in particular was included because, like, Sailor Saint was a very classic combo they did. They dropped Saint and they dropped Sailor in like 84, I think, and kept doing Saint of Circumstance. But the drifting and dreaming, and then the falsettos, and then the milking the lyrics and stuff like that. That is classic Bobby pretending to be a rock star right there. And
yeah, Bobby Shorts.
Bobby Shorts. It's Bobby Shorts. And in fact, I think, Bobby was wearing shorts. When Jay Blakesberg was on the show, I was freaking out because he took some of my favorite, I know he was there at 10-10-82 and stuff like that, and he took some of my favorite pictures of Bob Weir in shorts.
Yeah.
Such a handsome man. But yeah, that's sort of like what the Dead sound when Brent came on in 79-80, they were trying to actually sell records. They wanted the sound a bit more commercial, for lack of a better phrase, which is why you get songs like Alabama Getaway, you get and a lot of the stuff from Go to Heaven, where it sounds sort of like ballady, especially Lost Sailor, Same as Circumstance. And so that was a staple in Dead show starting in the 80s, and so I wanted to include a moment where you got some really good Bob Weird rock star stuff from the 80s. And as a quick aside, real quick, because I know time, there's a moment in that tape too. It's a great tape, and when they get to playing in the band, there's a lady who walks by the microphone and is like, has anybody seen my joint? I was my only one and I dropped it. And then they start like, oh, I don't know, and you can just kind of hear shuffling around and stuff as they're looking for it.
Is this one yours? Is this
Yeah,
one yours?
yeah, exactly.
No.
Is this your joint? No. Is this? No, that's the Queen of Hearts. But yeah, no, I 82 Dead, 80s Dead is so good.
Yeah, you're really selling me on this era that I never thought, I didn't have any real prejudice against. I mean, because I love Touch of Grey, so but I haven't heard a whole lot else beyond that. So just based off of that, I thought I would enjoy it. But this is really sealing the deal. I really enjoyed this era. So it looks like we have time for one more. So let's hear our final jam for the evening.
Yeah. So that one was it's a classic Dead song. It's China Cat Sunflower into I Know You Rider. I picked the jam segment just because I wanted to have people hear, how they would have jammed that song in particular in 1986, because when the Dead went on a hiatus in 1975, and when they came back, there were some songs that just changed, or some songs they just didn't play until years later. China Cat, I think they dropped like in 77 or played once in 77, and then they brought it back in the 80s. And the 80s version was drastically different than the one they played in the 70s, because in the 70s, Bob Weir got a solo. The first time I was on here, I played Bob Weir's solo specifically. But when they came back, they had two percussionists, so the rhythm had to change a little bit. And on top of that, just the nature of the band had changed. And so it ended up being like Bob Weir, you can hear in the back, he's doing more chord stuff with some of his traditional China Cat stuff. And then Jerry just sort of like soloing over it, and Brent blinking away. There's another portion of that recording that I don't think we'll have time to, but at like 1:22, you can hear Jerry sing, and it's like, oh, that man needs to exercise a little bit or something. Can we hear that? Is it possible to hear a clip? One minute 22 seconds.
How about this? Let's go out on that.
It's Jerry being exasperated. Okay.
Let's do that. But first, before we hear that clip, because I think that'd be funny to actually go out on that.
No.
But first, let's tell the people where they can find you, and all the pertinent information about your place of work.
Oh yeah, so you can find me most days of the week at Medium Rare Records and Collectibles. Physically, that's at 1104 R Street, number 140, inside the Wall building. Literally, there's like a brick building on R11. There's some steps. There's like a cafe and stuff. You go inside, straight through this little hallway, like opening.
It's a hallway, I think.
Yeah. Then you go to the left. There's some signage. There's like a thing that says Old Gold. You walk past that a little bit. There's a sign that has Medium Rare. You walk in, and then I say, "Hey, welcome in. Just sanitize before you browse." And then you walk away with like 50 Bo Diddley records or something. I don't know. And you can find us on Instagram too at Medium Rare, which is all one word, Medium Rare _records. And I'll post like Calypso or just whatever I'm feeling.
Nice. Well, this was a hoot and a half. I really enjoyed having you back again. I'm sure Volume 3 will be on its way at some point. It'll happen. This will just be a nice reserve episode. We know we could always go to.
Exactly.
Good old reliable. Good old reliable.
Grateful RJ.
Oh, grateful RJ. I was going to say that.
I took the words right out of your mouth.
So what is the timestamp that you would like Jesse to let us out on?
122.
122, Jesse, and then that'll be the show. Thanks for watching, folks. Have a wonderful night.
Oh no.
Thank you guys for joining us. Oh, make sure they can hear me. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Corey, RJ, Court. That is it for 6 o'clock Dad Rock Talk. Thank you. They are. You're not wrong. No doubt. No doubt. 666 in the chat says this band is weird AF, and you're not wrong.
Not wrong at all.
Check out the Dead. But thank you for hanging out with us for 6 o'clock Dad Rock Talk. We've got one more show tonight. It's at 8 o'clock. And that's the Stab Show.
It's the. Hear you. You're gonna want to do this plug again, Jesse.
If
you want people to watch Stab.
I'm turning you guys down. You can still hear the music. Everything's fine.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Tonight at 8 o'clock, it's the 8th anniversary edition of the Stab Show. Yes, it's our 8-year anniversary show with Daniel Kesnich, Becky Lynn, and Alyssa Cowan. Check us out at 8. In the meantime, let's send you guys over to, let's see who's still going. There we got, how about the Pack Theater down in LA? Take you down to Santa Monica Boulevard. Check them out, and we will see you, hopefully, back here in about an hour. Hold on. Pack Theater. There we are. Hold on for the rate. See you in a bit.
It's still going.
It can't be stopped.
Alright, almost there. What is this outro music, guys?
That's a good outro. But he sounds exasperated, you can tell.
He's trying.
Well, I mean, you know, when you smoke heroin and then gain, like, I don't even know how many pounds, the man was just drinking fruit juice to stay healthy.